The interest began when I was in 8th grade, and I received a book on science milestones during a Christmas from my father, and science fascinated me, and that with that and a good teacher in general science, and when I was in junior high school, I had an opportunity to explore things in biology and physics and chemistry to a smaller degree, and it became very fascinating to me. I could say my father, he was a sales manager for Milwaukee Electric Tool Company, and he was involved in seminars and what have you at the company, and we had an opportunity to see Earl Nightingale, who was a power of positive thinking person, and he introduced me to books of positive thinking that you could simply control your thoughts, and if you really wanted to do something bad enough, you just kept onto it. It wasn't money. It was fascination with the sciences. The sciences almost became a hobby. I enjoyed them to the extent that it was fun to do, and it was something that other people weren't doing. At that point, I became interested in underwater diving, since diving, Jacques Cousteau and what have you was just in the beginning stages, and this was very fascinating to me. And so, with money that earned from construction jobs during the summer, was able to, when I graduated from high school, buy a aqualung. At that time it was called, now it's called scuba, and did what you're not supposed to do, learn how to dive by yourself, and again picked up some books on what was available at the time, and went out to the middle of the lake by myself and dove, and this was not a good thing to do, but it did give me some experience. I also was extremely interested in firearms, and I was interested in explosives, and didn't know if anyone knew anything about explosives. And so I checked into paperwork and the legality, and was able to obtain a license to buy dynamite. I started a company called CMesh using a detonating cord. And how this happened, how this started, was I again used my diver skills. Well, in the process of this whole thing, I had gone down one particular time, and I was using light grain detonating cord. It looks like thin clothesline, and it has a core of a material called PETM, pentoerythritol tetranitrate, and it's a very safe explosive to use, but it has a detonation velocity that's very high, and it's why it be high, they call it brisant. It's a very brisant explosive. At the last time I was down there working underwater, I had forgotten one particular part of my cutters, and special cutters are needed to cut this detonating cord so that it's safe. And so there was a section of about 5 feet of the detonating cord that was left, and I just left it float. It was not anything particularly dangerous, and it happened to float next to the side of the ship where there was a lot of marine growth. Well, I felt that it was okay, and I got out of the water and detonated the explosive, and then I went back down to inspect the job, make sure there was no damage, and noticed that the wiggly line alongside the hull was made by the detonating cord that was there. Putting this together, I thought this might be a possible way of cleaning ships or getting rid of heavy marine growth. And so I wove a net out of this marine growth. And they had some ships out in Elliott Bay, Liberty ships that were there, and they were owned by Zidell's. And I asked them, could I have permission to experimentally clean these? And they said, sure. And so with the proper insurances in place, we went out and experimentally detonated this grids of this net, if you would, which we called sea mesh. And it cleaned the hull very nicely. And we got a job from the Todd shipyard that normally would take $15,000 to clean a ship out of dry dock, and I said I would do it for $3,000 to try to get the job. I did get the job, and in the process of setting up, they wanted it done one particular day. We jumped in the water at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and laid the mesh out, and they wanted the whole ship cleaned. Not just the sides where the big marine growth was. We had never done this before. And so we did what they wanted, and we had a net that stretched on the bottom, and the bottom of these ships doesn't look like a normal ship. It looks like a shoebox. Anyway, the mesh was detonated, and it provided too much shock. And we lifted the ship up an inch or so in a few microseconds, and enough shock was incurred by the blast to bust $93,000 worth of toilets that were on board, and ruin some electrical generator sets. And even though I was insured by Lloyd's of London, this was the end of my sea mesh career pretty much. No one really wanted to talk to me. There I was newly married. My wife was a stewardess with United and was nice enough to support me for a year while I searched around for an opportunity. And I found that opportunity in optics. And I became a dealer for celestron telescopes. And I thought to myself, why not? This is the cloudiest part of the United States. It's mostly raining most of the time. But when it is clear, it's some of the clearest air we have. And there might be an astronomical community here. And sure enough, there was. Banks started charging for credit cards, and the sharp drop in sales at that particular point, people didn't have the money, and so we desperately needed to find another avenue. And so we found there was an opportunity of utilizing electro-optics. And this all happened because someone had turned in an image intensifier they received someplace, and I adapted it to a telescope. And now this was an opportunity of taking night vision, which was also brand new at that time, to adapt it to telescopes. And experimentally, this worked extremely well. And at the same time, the Seattle Police Department had received an opportunity to utilize their drug money that they seized from drug operations, and they could spend it on new surveillance equipment. So this gave them an opportunity to use image intensifiers in long-range telescopes where they could actually see across Puget Sound to look at different operations that they wanted to see. And the business grew at that particular point. We were doing extremely well, and it went up and down, and then shortly thereafter, the military funds were cut, and so the people who were building image intensifiers were struggling, and so they started to dig into the market that I was at, and that was selling to the police directly, and of course they sold to the police at the prices I was paying for image intensifiers. So that led me into a new market, and that is utilizing lasers to illuminate a long-range image intensifiers so that I could see extreme distances. And I put 5 patents together on that particular concept. And that really started the business off in laser technology, and that's where it is today. The customers that we deal with are all branches of the service. Being able to develop something that is useful, and having soldiers come back from war and saying that my product saved their life is very intense for me. Knowing that my being here has accomplished something. Besides a wonderful family and children and all the good things around us. And the fact that we're here and I believe in Christ, and to say, why are we here? We all know we're going someplace. And I believe fervently that the Lord wouldn't build a stairway leading nowhere. After this life, we're going to another in His service.